Until blackouts begin or pump prices make driving actually unaffordable, most people generally think no more often of energy than of air. For this reason, Americans have mostly been sheltered from the energy crisis unfolding urgently and in some cases lethally in countries around the world. In many other places, especially Europe, the escalating situation is impossible to ignore, and it's going to get a lot worse. Natural gas prices topped $3,100 per 1,000 cubic meters in mid-August, a 610% increase over the same time last year as measured by the Dutch TTF market. At this price, many power stations cannot afford to operate for long. As a consequence of the rising cost of input fuels, benchmark electricity prices in Europe have surged almost 300% in 2022, breaking records. Taken together, energy prices are 10 times higher than the 5-year average. Welcome to Savvy Economists. Today we would be talking about the ignored energy sector and how bad its impact has creeped up in the larger context of the world economy and how important its correction is for people to be able to thrive. If measures are not taken as swiftly, we would be entering the coldest winter of a lifetime. Before we continue with the video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and turn notifications on. The world is facing a reckoning when it comes to energy supply. Despite decades of calls to reduce dependency on fossil fuels, countries have persisted on the widespread use of coal, oil, and gas to fuel their economies. Not only has the burning of fossil fuels been responsible for rising carbon emissions that drive global heating, but we have created a globalized world in which food and energy systems are highly concentrated, which makes them extremely vulnerable to disruption. The war in Ukraine underscores how the lack of diversity in our global energy and food systems are working against the resilience of livelihoods. As the prices for energy, fertilizer, and food commodities skyrocket, people across the planet are unable to absorb the rising costs. As a result, we see an unprecedented contribution of rising energy prices to food insecurity and humanitarian needs. Our collective failure to promote diversified energy systems has forced millions around the world to become dependent on humanitarian assistance to meet their basic needs for survival. Even before the current energy crisis began, the world was falling short in ensuring equitable access to energy for all. 770 million people lack access to electricity worldwide, which precludes efforts to achieve poverty eradication and other development goals. At the same time, approximately 2.5 billion people lack access to clean cooking, meaning nearly 1/3 of the global population still depend on firewood and charcoal for cooking their meals. This leads to negative health consequences, disproportionately threatening the safety and well-being of women and girls. It also contributes to deforestation and resource scarcity, which can trigger social tensions. As political negotiations ensue and initiatives such as the UN Global Crisis Response Group convene to unlock solutions to the current crisis, preventing further aggravation and transforming systems to withstand future shocks requires a forward outlook. Instead, we see countries reacting to the energy crisis by reneging on their climate commitments and reverting to fossil fuels. This threatens global cooperation to advance climate action at a time when adherence to such pledges is of vital importance. If we are to keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius target of the Paris Agreement within reach and build the resilience of the systems that power and feed us, the diversification of food and energy systems needs to be at the heart of our collective efforts. Such diversification entails transitioning to the use of low-carbon and fuel-efficient technologies across food systems in pursuit of global targets to achieve net zero emissions by mid-century. In this context, it is imperative to promote the use of renewable energy sources, such as solar, hydro, and wind, and to close the gap of energy access in developing countries. Not only do average households struggle to pay for power and heating at such a cost, but governments are coming up short. The $279 billion European governments have recently allocated to help small consumers is already not enough. Britain's National Energy Action Charity projects an increase from 4.5 million UK households to a full 8.5 million will face energy poverty this winter. Kosovo is already suffering rolling blackouts, 2 hours off for every 6 hours on. Brown and blackouts are also expected in other European countries. The worst has yet to come. The continent is far from ready. In warm weather, cooling equipment consumes electricity, which may be generated by natural gas, wind or solar power, coal, geothermals, biomass, or nuclear. By contrast, in cold weather, the heating season, consumption draws mainly from fossil fuels, especially natural gas and oil, because most heating systems are still petroleum-fueled. Like every year, demand for natural gas will thus increase dramatically come winter. With Europe dependent on Russian imports for over 40% of its gas needs, and 46% for coal and 27% for oil, Putin has a lot of leverage. And this year, he is not playing nice. Gazprom, Russia's state-owned natural gas company, has been gradually restricting gas exports to Europe since 2021, an effort to weaponize energy against Putin's opponents, perceived enemies, and erstwhile Soviet satellite states, including Ukraine. The ensuing difficulties have then been used to encourage fractures in NATO and other Western alliances and allegiances. This is not a new tactic, but he is wielding it with unprecedented ferocity. The threat now is that Gazprom cuts off gas to Europe completely to punish the continent for sanctions imposed in response to Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Hopes that Russia's dependency on the European energy markets, more than $120 billion in revenues over the last 10 years, would keep Putin from such a drastic step were clearly misplaced. He seems evidently willing to sacrifice his own country's economic well-being to spite Europe. Many experts, the International Monetary Fund among them, now consider a complete cessation of Russian gas exports to Europe a plausible scenario. Many others think it likely, and the evidence is mounting. In what was clearly, in retrospect, preparation for invading Ukraine, Russia began emptying German gas storages in 2021 while slowing down its gas production. Since March 2022, Gazprom has been inventing excuses to slowly turn off the energy taps. First, after demanding payment for gas in rubles in an effort to crack financial sanctions, Gazprom cut off 6 buyers that refused, including companies in Finland, Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands, as well as Poland and Bulgaria entirely. Gazprom is also diverting more of its gas to China instead of Europe. Exports through the Power of Siberia natural gas pipeline, which runs from Siberia to eastern China, are up 61% over 2021, and since July the daily volume is a record-breaking 300% above what Russia is contractually required to supply. Gazprom says Europe is to blame. And political will notwithstanding, escaping Russia's energy web is hard. Even while momentum increases on alternatives, Europe's imports of Russian diesel have increased by 22% since the beginning of July, a fact that underscores just how difficult replacing Russia fuel is in the short term. The EU has paid 85 billion euros to Russia for energy supplies just since the February 24th invasion of Ukraine. That's an increase of 6.6 billion euros per month over last year, despite reducing Russian energy imports by 15%. Internal Russian government documents show a projected 38% increase over 2021 in revenues from energy exports, up to $337.5 billion, because although gas exports will have dropped from 205.6 BCM to 170.4 BCM, gas prices are astronomical and oil exports are up. If Russia cuts off the gas, the European consequences will be massive and the global economic consequences could be tragic. The IMF calculated in mid-July that for Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic a full cut-off of natural gas from Russia could drop GDPs by up to 6%. Global economic growth would drop by 2.6% in 2022 and another 2% in 2023. On a human level, some people will not have heating, others will have to choose between warmth and food. The Economist has preemptively labeled it the winter of discontent due to the looming catastrophe. According to energy expert Llewellyn King, the end of this year for Europe is likely to be its worst winter since the one at the end of World War II, from 1944 to 1945. Global dependency on Europe's energy, and more precisely on Russia's oil, has led us to these crossroads. With the Russia and Ukraine war not coming close to a standstill and the retaliation of Russia to the economic sanctions, the energy crisis seems a bit far from over. How long will it take for a solution to be provided or for an alternate, adoptable source of energy to be put in place is something global organizations are working on, although there is no concrete proof of a serious alternative. How badly have you been affected by the energy crisis? Do you think sanctions should be lifted from Russia in order to reduce the pressure on energy commodities? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep notifications on. Thanks for watching.